Get open lines, 248-539-9797. Reacting to the hire of Drew Petzing as the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. There's so much to talk about. That Piston game last night. Red Wings involved in all kinds of trade rumors right now. Got a national championship game in college football, Michigan and Michigan State basketball, both playing tonight and both playing very well. We are open for anything you want to discuss at 248-539-9797. Jamie is in Rochester and is next. Hello, Jamie.
Hi there.
What's up?
Well, I don't know if anybody else was thinking about this. I thought the hire was okay for offensive coordinator. I mean, not great, but the Arizona Cardinals just fired their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, and he was actually a really good defensive coordinator. So I was just curious as to why. I mean, how come there was no talk of us going after him? Are we just set then with our defensive coordinator?
It sounds like it. I mean, there have been no rumblings that the Lions are interviewing anybody for defensive coordinator positions, and I think there's quite a few good ones out there that are proven. But they really like their guy, and they're going to run it back at least one more year with Kelvin Shepherd.
You know, I feel like, I don't know, I wasn't overwhelmed with their defense this last year, but I guess we'll just have to see if it shakes out, and I'm curious as to what you guys have to say of who you would have rather had
Jamie,
for offensive coordinator.
I think this is something that I think is, I don't know that it's critical, but it is something that I'm paying close attention to. Look, this division's arguably the toughest division in football. The Detroit Lions, the people in charge have done a very good job, but it's not been good enough because there's an ultimate measuring stick, and you have to reach that ultimate goal and win the Super Bowl. And I think that they can. But if anything, I want them to self-reflect on what they can do better. They are not in the business of developing Kelvin Shepherd as a defensive coordinator. They're not in the business of keeping Kelvin Shepherd on their staff. They're in the business of winning a Super Bowl. And if they deem that Kelvin Shepherd is the best man to be the defensive coordinator for this roster, and they think they'll get the best results with him, fine. But there is, in my opinion, no reason not to be interviewing other people for that job. A, Kelvin Shepherd is interviewing for a head coaching position. B, when other candidates become available, if they can do better, hire them. And I'm not, I don't know that Kelvin Shepherd is, they know better than I do. If they believe in him, great, roll with him. Your fate is tied to it. But if you think you can get somebody better, then there's no reason not to be trying to get somebody better. Whether it be Jonathan Gannon, whether it be Brian Flores, whether it be whomever. And I hope that they aren't just going to roll status quo because it's status quo. And they may conclude that Shepard's the best man for the job. I have no issue with that. They can do what they've earned that. To me, they've earned the credibility where I believe in them, okay? But I think it would be a mistake not to be looking for the next guy, especially when your guy's interviewing for head coaching positions, whether you think he's likely to get him or not.
Something else that was reported was that Petzing had a discussion with Jared Goff over the weekend. Mm-hmm. So obviously Jared Goff is going to sign off on this. Otherwise, I don't think this is going to get off to a real rocky start. I would imagine he signs off on it. And I don't think that he's going to come. Petzing's going to talk to Jared Goff and say, look, we need you to run some more.
There's no way.
There's no way, right? I mean, it's not going to be. This is why I caution everybody, and myself included. I'm not going to look too much into what Arizona did. All right, it's what they think this guy can do as a play caller specifically, implementing Dan Campbell's offense and bringing some of those concepts in the run game that worked, and maybe some tight end stuff that they liked as well. We're going to weave some of that in here and work with it. How do you work with Jared Goff? Because it's huge. You know, you have to have a relationship with the quarterback, and I'm sure that Jared feels comfortable. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened.
248-539-9797. More feedback to the Carson Anderson inbox. I question this hire in the moment, and every expert and analyst I've seen has questioned or hated this hire. Well, I don't know that everyone hates the hire.
I mean, hate's a strong word.
yeah.
I think question is fair. You're allowed to
Well,
question.
here's the thing, and here's one of the reasons why it's absolutely fair game to question it. This is the fourth offensive coordinator that's been hired in Detroit since Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes took over. Now, it's not because they've all been successful, right?
Right.
Two of them didn't work. The thing that worries me, I want out-of-the-box thinking, and I want someone who is going to challenge these players, because I personally feel they didn't have that grit this past season. They didn't have that fight, that dog in them. That's from an unnamed texter. I don't know what this has to do with Petzing. Like, what is it about Petzing? You don't think that he's going to challenge the players? You don't think he's going to... In fact, think about what you just said. Dan Campbell, all he talks about is grit. And you think Dan Campbell would go out and hire an offensive coordinator that doesn't embody those things, that doesn't believe in the same message? I mean, come on.
I don't think this is an out-of-the-box hiring at all. I think it's only out of the box because a lot of people, myself included, didn't really know much about him, you know? I think they're trying to get Ben Johnson in a way. Him and Ben Johnson are so close, each other's wedding and whatever, or he was a groomsman in Johnson's wedding. They're very close friends. I think they probably align in the way they call offensive plays. And that's why they were drawn to Drew and ultimately end up hiring him, because they think this guy's kind of like a lot like Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson was damn successful here. So I think it's not as out of the box as everyone thinks it is. I think they're trying to get Ben Johnson again in a way. Because if this is his really good friend, they think the same, they both, like the offense run the same way, which is the way Dan Campbell likes it ran as well. I think that's what they're trying to do, personally.
He's a real smart dude. And
young.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, kind of aligned with Ben Johnson, perhaps.
They probably bounce a ton of ideas off each other on how to run offenses and probably agree on a lot of it.
I think it matters a lot that there's familiarity not only with Ben Johnson, but also with Hank Fraley. And keeping up with those offensive concepts. Frank Fraley's going to be the offensive line coach. He worked with them. So there's that kind of familiarity as well. If the Lions can get the offensive line figured out, they'll be fine offensively. That's not going to be the issue.
Next text, Doug, Arizona fans likely have a good idea on Drew Petzing. Here's why. Lions fans would agree Morton wasn't good. Michigan fans were glad to see Gaddis go. I think you're discounting what people saw in Arizona. Gaddis is fascinating because I remember people complaining to me constantly about Josh Gaddis. The year he won the Broyles Award. I mean, people bitch about offensive coordinators constantly. He won the Broyles Award and people were bitching.
I'm surprised there are Arizona Cardinal fans.
Eric writes in, nobody knew who Ben Johnson was. Nobody really knows who any OC is, with a couple of exceptions. I'll judge Petzing when I see our offense next season. That's fair. I mean, I think it's probably wise. It's okay to give your opinion beforehand. Let me be clear on that. Do I put much stock in what Arizona fans had to say? I really don't. But do I have questions about it? I do. I can see the concept here. I can see what they're trying to accomplish. But really, it comes down to a question of, do you judge the people in charge to make this hire? Because there was a bright, shiny thing available, potentially, in Mike McDaniel. And if you trust them, you're okay with them hiring a virtual no-name over the brightest and shiniest things in NFL football when it comes to offensive football. 248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. We'll get to more of your reaction on the hiring of Drew Petzing as Lions OC. Talk some college football. National champs, Indiana, 97-1.
Evan Petzold of the Detroit Free Press is reporting today that despite other reports, Tarek Skubal's agent Scott Boras actually remains open to negotiating with the Tigers before their arbitration hearing with Skubal in the coming weeks. When the two parties originally filed valuation numbers $13 million apart, reports said the Tigers offered Skubal $19.8 million for next year, and Boras never replied to the Tigers, who eventually filed their arbitration number at $19 million. Now Boras is denying that characterization, and per Petzold's latest reporting, is open to continuing negotiations. He said, quote, "We are open to negotiate. There are no deadlines from Tarek Skubal's camp," unquote. We are just 3 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting to MLB spring training. The way too early odds for next season's college football champion are already out after Indiana's national title win over Miami last night. Michigan has the 10th best odds in the country at 33-1. Michigan State's only a little bit behind, as BetOnline has the Spartans at 600-1. We do have more college basketball between Michigan and Michigan State tonight as well. The Wolverines are at home to host the Indiana Hoosiers, who they are 15.5-point favorites over. That game tips off tonight at 7 o'clock in Ann Arbor. Meanwhile, Michigan State is scheduled to take on the Oregon Ducks on the road, so it's a late 9 p.m. tip-off for the Spartans. We're just 10 days away from the first meeting of the season between Michigan and Michigan State, which is set for January 30th in East Lansing. That's an 8 o'clock tip that night. At the Corewell Health Sports Desk, I'm Brendan Shabath. For more, go to 97.1 The Ticket or Odyssey.com.
Doug Harsh, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Open lines, 248-539-9797. If you want to keep talking about Drew Petzing, the new Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, taking your phone calls and feedback on that. The reaction, it's really interesting to gauge the reaction because I think this is as out of the blue hire as we've seen in some time. And it really comes down to trusting the people in charge versus the brightest and shiniest of things that was available in Mike McDaniel, who, access to Mike McDaniel's debatable because most people think he's going to end up with a head coaching offer. But the Lions didn't seem to want to leave either if it's true that he wasn't a good fit, a set of criteria that they appears to be 100% beholden to. And that is everybody, including coaches, has to be a culture fit. And it's been good to them. It has been good to them. But the goal isn't to prove a point. The goal is to win the Super Bowl. So, I think it's fair to say, should they do something that it's a little bit out of their own comfort zone? They clearly believe they can win the Super Bowl their way. They clearly believe that, and they've stuck to it. And, when it comes to trade deadline and draft, and people say, why not this guy? Why not that guy? And we always try and figure out why not this guy, why not that guy. Remember when Chase Young was available? Mm-hmm. The edge rusher, and he was with the Commanders back then?
Yes.
And he ended up going to San Francisco. There was a play in the Lions-San Francisco game that got a lot of scrutiny because Chase Young was on the field in that NFC title game where he totally loafed it and lollygagged it, and it got pointed out, and you could see it. It was on the Lions' touchdown run that he didn't hustle at all. And that didn't seem to be – that might have been the moment. Like, that's why they weren't interested in him. It might be overplayed, but, there are things that they definitely believe in. And if they didn't think Mike McDaniel was a great fit, again, they have every right to believe that and move a different direction. But it's also their jobs are on the line. They've built it to be close. And being close is not success. It's more success than we've seen here, but it's not success. Success is winning the Super Bowl.
Well, ultimately, to me, it's less about a play call and it's more about the players executing whatever play is called. So it's on the players. They're the ones that are out there on the field performing, and they've got to get some better players on this team to compete for a Super Bowl. I don't think they have to go ahead and revamp the entire roster or even a giant part of roster. It's a few players. I think specifically that they have to improve the positions. And when they do, this team is as good as any team in the National Football League. And they're going to have to get some luck with injuries, and hopefully that they don't go through it again for a third straight year like they've gone through the last couple of years. And it's a big thing. And, to the crowd, everybody talks about, using it as an excuse or whatever, or look what San Francisco did. Yeah, I got it. Look what San Francisco did. And now they're out of the playoffs.
Well, look what the Lions did last year.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. And if you look through what happened again over the weekend, more injuries happen. Bo Nix injures himself on a seemingly harmless play, and now the number one seed is without their number one quarterback on the second to last play of the game. It's unbelievable. And then Zach Charbonnet tears his ACL. He's out for Seattle. So it happens to every single team, and how can they bounce back? How can they recover from it? I don't know if Denver's going to be able to with Jared Stidham at quarterback, but I guess it's just you're going to need some luck along the way, and the Lions are due for some luck when it comes to injuries.
248-539-9797. Gary and Howell, you're next. Hi, Gary.
Hi, how are you guys doing today?
What's up?
Well, I'm okay with the OC hire. My question is more on Calvin Shepard. And do you think – I'm not doing backflips over him. It seems like his best games were against the subpar teams and really didn't stand out too much against the good teams. Do you think they're even looking, or do you think they're going to give Shepard another year?
Well, they did beat the Bears twice, and I think in both of those games you could say the Lions' defense played well.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, I mean, it's overall for the whole year. You think I think they're gonna roll the dice with them, or
Well, I don't know if you heard last hour. I mean, I addressed it last hour. I think it's something they need to take a serious look at. And if you can upgrade the position, don't hesitate, do it. But
I agree.
But they know better than us as to whether or not Shepard, how responsible Shepard is for successes and failures. I'm okay with them keeping him. I'm not okay with them not looking to upgrade any position. So I hope that they've reached out to Brian Flores.
Yes, I agree.
If you can get him now, he's
right,
probably gonna land a head coaching position as well. But that doesn't mean it's a mistake to bring back Calvin Shepard. I think it's just simply a mistake to make sure that you can't upgrade. I mean,
I think if you look through the first.
What about Raheem Morris?
I think there's guys out there that would be intriguing. But if you look through the first 2/3 of the season, when the defense was pretty healthy, before the safeties vacated the premises, I think you can make the case that the defense is playing pretty well. So there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be a game or two there that you don't like, but for the most part, during that stretch leading up to the Giants game, you're talking about a team with 6-4 at that point, and I thought the defense played pretty well, holding Philadelphia to 16 points. You had a Tampa team that only scored 9 points, Cleveland at 10 points, the Bears at 21 points. I mean, they did a decent enough job, and they were able to do enough to beat teams like the Bears and Baltimore. So there's some stuff to like and there's some stuff not to like. But I think once you get hindered with the secondary issues that they had at that point, once you go into the Giants game and you lose, I think that was a game they lost Brian Branch in. You already had no Kirby Joseph, and then you're losing your two of your top three corners are out as well. It's tough.
Let's go to Joe and Flint. You are next. Hello, Joe.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Just a quick points. They're historical. I apologize for that. This is why you don't stand pat like our general manager did. The Cowboys of the early 90s were good after the Herschel Walker trade, but they needed more. They didn't stand pat. They went and got Charles Haley. They won the next 2 Super Bowls. The 49ers, seeing what happened, went out and got Deion Sanders and beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys the next year, seeing what the 49ers did, went out and got Deion Sanders and won the Super Bowl. So there's a wisdom in, yes, getting that one player that can put you over the top.
And who was that player? Who was that player? Who was the player the Lions missed out on at the trade deadline?
You pick it.
No, I'm asking you. Who was the player they missed out on?
The biggest pass rusher that went to Philadelphia, and he had 2 sacks the rest of the way.
It depends how much they want to spend. I thought the one fellow
no, there's a cap.
Was available.
Well, you got a salary cap you have to deal with,
cap.
and then you have to find a player that you like that another team is willing to part with, and then you have to settle on the compensation.
I don't think I would argue strongly, Joe, that they would absolutely, if they could get a Charles Haley or a Deion Sanders under the cap, they would.
Okay, all right. So there conceivably could be a wisdom there in getting that level.
Oh,
of
there
player.
conceivably could be. Look, I mean, the
They
people
search for it every year. They'll look to add at the trade deadline if they can. It's just the question was, could they do that this year?
Brad Holmes said
faster.
something sort of left some breadcrumbs when he said there's players out there that everybody wants you to go get, and then later you find out why they were available. And when I heard that, I immediately drew a straight line to Trey Hendrickson, who didn't play after the trade deadline. He was hurt. If people wanted Max Crosby, could have never got it. There was no accessibility to him. Jalen Phillips was a big name that got moved at the trade deadline and had minimal impact in Philadelphia. Finally, the one player that I liked, the trade that I liked the most was Rashid Shaheed to Seattle, and he did almost nothing up until that playoff game.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were some guys moved. I think that they would do that if it made sense and they could do it under the cap. But
a few years ago, it was Brian Burns. That was the guy that
my
everybody
man
was
just
trying to
said-
get, and Carolina just refused to trade him. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes guys just aren't available.
I think they'd add a Hall of Fame talent if they could get a Hall of Fame talent, yes. And it made sense under the cap. By the way, this was the Jeff Darlington thing on Mike McDaniel. He tweeted out, of coordinator jobs that Mike McDaniel has interviewed for, the Lions gig was the least likely to materialize. Campbell liked McDaniel a lot, but the Lions didn't view him as quite the right fit for them. As for the other OC vacancies, Mike is very much in play. Ball is in his court. So it's a leap of faith to say pass on the bright shiny thing and this guy that nobody'd heard of. It doesn't mean he's a bad hire. It's just I think fans are struggling a little bit with accepting that we're supposed to accept the guy we never heard of over a guy who's got this great reputation. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1. Hey, Sarah Chevrolet in Sterling Heights is ready to warm up the winter with hot deals, like a 3-year lease on a 2026 Chevy Trax LT for just $239 a month with $19.99 down. You heard it right, $239. Go down to 17.5 in Van Dyke in Sterling Heights. 87-SAY-SARAH or saysarah.com. Together, let's drive with GM employee discount through Ally Bank, 10,000 miles per year, plus taxes and fees with approved credit. Offer ends February 2nd. Doug Hurst, Scott Anderson, 97.1. Open lines, 248-539-9797. Let's go to Bernard in Detroit. You're next. Hi, Bernard.
What's going on?
Hey, Bernard.
I think people fail to evaluate the politics in sports. You know, how much somebody liked and not liked, or how much power somebody wants or don't want. I think we're involved now in a situation where Dan Campbell wants to be the only loud voice in the room. And I think I called there last week and said, watch and see, he's going to hire nobody, because he don't want a veteran anything under. He wants to be the Cub Scout leader. He wants to be the main voice in the room. He don't want any other person coming in there influencing his way of thinking at all. And I think that's what's going on. It happens in corporate America too. There's no difference. It's all about politics. Who you like, who you don't like, how much power your boss want or don't want will lead to the decisions being made. Unfortunately, as fans, we have to sit here and watch this thing. I mean, here he is supposed to be in the Super Bowl window, and he's gambling on the defensive coordinator, and he's gambling on an offensive coordinator who already has a track record of underperforming. Nobody can make sense of it because it doesn't make any sense. It's politics.
Bernard, he has. I mean, when you're the head coach, you do get to have a big say over who's on your staff. I don't know that it's 100% that this guy has a track record of underperforming. If you look at the 2023 and 2024 seasons, and if you look at what his strengths are, it might fit in well with exactly what the Lions need when it comes to what he is credited with, which is solid concepts in the run game.
But Doug, you used the word might. That's the problem.
Everything's
you
a might,
use
Bernard.
The word might.
Everything's a might.
It's a gamble.
Everything is.
No, if you go with somebody who has a proven track record of doing something, they're going to do it for you.
Well, I remember back when the Lions hired who's the quarter, Rod Marinelli. When they hired Rod Marinelli, who had never been a head coach before, gave him his shot. The offensive coordinator, the name for the team was Mike Martz. Mike Martz won a Super Bowl as the head coach of the Rams, greatest show on turf. And Mike Martz with the Lions was a disaster. Now, the whole team was a disaster, and they were run by a moron and in terms of how they did things as a general manager. I like Matt Millen a lot, but not as GM of the Lions. But that marriage was a disaster. It can go both ways. You can have somebody who seems like makes all the sense in the world, and then you put it into practice and like, oh, this didn't work out at all. It was a bad marriage.
Bernard, you want a longer resume.
I want somebody that, okay, I know you guys don't have a lot of time. I hurry this up. But just like all of a sudden the Lions went with proven players. They went with All-Americans. And now look at our team compared to how they used to take gambles on guys we never heard of. Now they're going with All-Americans, and now we're getting better results because they have a track record of performing on a high level. They don't gamble on players the way they used to.
All right. I mean, I would argue that there's plenty of guys on this roster that most people hadn't heard of.
Well, once you go through injuries, you got a whole bunch of them that you don't know who the hell they are. But I would also say that, every player in the National Football League is the best of the best. This is why you're at this league. And the same thing goes for coaches.
Yeah, look.
This is why you're here as a coach in the league. And Dan Campbell, they hired Anthony Lynn as the first offensive coordinator.
Had a top third offense at the Chargers.
They held on to Aaron Glenn for all these years. And Aaron Glenn was very well respected. You got to find those guys.
When I ask if it's a matter of trust, Bernard obviously doesn't trust Dan Campbell and wants somebody with a proven track record. I don't necessarily blame him for the track record part.
I don't think it's politics, though. I mean, I don't want to put words in Bernard's mouth, but did it sound like...
Sound like Bernard had some bad experiences in corporate America.
Well, maybe. But did it sound like, that he was thinking that Dan Campbell isn't going to hire somebody that may outshine Dan Campbell? And I don't think Dan Campbell cares.
I don't either. Would Ben Johnson still be his offensive coordinator?
Yes.
If nobody hired him?
Yes. I don't think Dan Campbell just wants to win. Period. He wants to get that trophy. And they'll do whatever it takes to get that trophy in his mind. But it's got to be somebody that fits what they're looking for. And not everybody is going to be that fit. I'm not sure why Mike McDaniel wasn't the fit.
I'm not either.
Or if it was just simply we know that he's going to get a head coaching gig or whatever the case is. But there is a reason that they think that Drew Petzing fits. And we don't know what that is yet because they haven't spoken out yet about why they hired Drew Petzing to be the offensive coordinator.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but an established offensive coordinator will come in with an idea of how he wants to run things.
Yes.
When the Lions probably look at their offense and see tweaking, we got a text about this. They look at their offense and see tweaking being necessary, some changes on the margins, and not necessarily an overhaul. Somebody with an established track record might be more, with a longer track record than Petzing, might be a little bit more stubborn about what they want to do. And that might be what, I mean, the texter speculated that's why McDaniel didn't get the job.
Well, the other thing is
it would make sense.
The new OC is being brought in to call plays, right? The play caller, which is the hot new term we're using lately. And, when you interview somebody to be a play caller, you're probably going to put them to the task of saying, okay, what would you do this? And if he would say, if Petzing is going to come out and say, yeah, we got to do more play action, have to do that because that's where Jared's at his best. We also have to protect him, and we can do play action while keeping the running back in the backfield. He's going to fake, he's going to take the run, and then he's going to take a step back, and whatever it is, he's going to be put on the spot and explain why it is that he would do what he wants to do. And it has to fit with what they want to do. And it might be simply saying, look, we got great running backs here in Detroit. Here's how we can maximize what we have. We can do a different type of blocking up front, and we'll call more plays towards our strength or whatever it is. And it just, whatever he said worked because it totally jived with what they wanted to. And they cut off the process seemingly pretty early.
Yeah.
With interviewing anybody else. I mean, they interviewed at least 7 candidates as far as I know. So they got the guy they liked.
Mike is next on 97.1. Hello, Mike.
How you doing, guys?
What's up?
Good morning. Good morning. What I haven't heard anybody talking about, man, is the fact that we can ask for whoever we want. I want this guy. I want that guy. You got to realize the guy has to want to come here, period. If you don't want to come here, it doesn't matter what the interview is about, man. I haven't heard anybody say anything about that. Mike McDaniel might not have wanted to come here. I know I heard you guys say that he might not have been a fit.
I mean, we haven't heard.
Want to be here,
yeah,
man.
we haven't heard any reporting that that's the case.
I mean, they want to be here, wouldn't have interviewed. Unless he goes to the interview and is like, yeah, you know what? No, I'll take myself out of it or whatever.
Right, they have, but the bottom line is they have to want to come here, and then the Lions want to have them here. That's part of the process as well.
Do you think that Mike McDaniel didn't want to be here?
I'm not sure, but a brilliant mind of a guy as he is, like you said, with these head coaching jobs open, man, there's an opportunity for him to be a head coach compared to maybe he just wasn't ready to make that commitment here. As of the interview.
I mean, I suppose it's possible that he took his name out of the running. That's possible. There's no reporting that that's the case. Eric in Novi, what's up, Eric?
I think the issue is Dan wants to run his offense. Johnny Morton came in and he had to run Dan's offense. He was asking questions about, well, I have to ask Dan on this, or I need to understand and learn the playbook better. Any shiny new thing, as you call it, Doug, the hot prospects are not going to run Dan's offense. He's going to come in. If you're hiring a big name, he's going to come in and bring his own offense, his own terminology, his own system. And so Dan isn't going for that. Dan wants somebody to tweak his system and run it like it is. It's a top 5 offense. There's only 4 guys who had better numbers last year. So it's not something that he wants to blow up. So I think with McDaniel probably came in, shiny new thing, and it's like, I'm not running your offense. This is my offense. He has 7 interviews, 3 for head coaches. He's not going to come in and run Dan's offense. And all of the hot prospects that everybody wants is going to have the same conditions. So
I mean, McDaniel's probably got a lot of options. He probably doesn't feel the need that he's got to, bend to anybody because I can go do my thing. What job makes the most sense for me where I can do my thing? And if you're right, then that would make sense. Tom is next on 97.1. Hi, Tom.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
The thing that I guess makes me happy is in years past, I feel like we would have just let it ride. John Morton wouldn't have got fired. The things that have been changing and things that we're looking at internally and trying to change, I don't think that would have happened in years past. We would have just let it ride with the same players, same people. So I'm happy.
One of the greatest failures of the Ford organization for a long time as ownership was they were way too loyal. They stuck with people way too long. Dan Campbell doesn't do that. Dan Campbell, when Dan Campbell's, he's quick triggered some people and moved on, and he's been pretty much right to do so.
And I'm not trying to drink the Kool-Aid. I'm happy with the hire, and I keep on just John Jansen, let's let it ride out, let it play out, see what else we do this offseason, see if we get a new center. I'm happy with what we're doing right now, and I think that things are going to get better.
Thank you for the phone call, Tom. 248-539-9797. We promised we'd get to college football national championship game last night. And a lot to like about what Indiana did and the changing in college football. That at 11:32 on 97.1. I have to admit it rings kind of hollow with me, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because the Southeastern Conference hysterically co-opted each other's success for years. And I'm like, okay, all right. They all talk SEC.
The dollar sign EC.
Yeah. Well, now that the Big Ten has won 3 straight national championships, I'm going to mention it. I don't find a ton of gratification in it, but it is being interpreted as a changing of the guard in college football, and that the B1G now runs the show. And I'm not going to tell people they're wrong. I'm just, I don't think I'm enjoying it as much as Southeastern Conference fans did. I tease my SEC buddies. I got a text chain with them, but they're even kind of acquiescing that the Big Ten has taken over. Nick Saban made the comment yesterday on the pregame show that the NIL world favors the Big Ten because nobody's leaving the South to go play in the North without money. And I'm thinking, God, for 50 years, it sure felt like players didn't leave the South because of money.
Right, because they actually got paid, so they stayed there. Because they weren't allowed to pay in the North. We follow the rules, I guess.
Well, we try.
More so than the teams in the South.
I think it's wink and a nod and acknowledge that was always the case. And this is one of the reasons why I don't want any rules put in place for a good decade here.
3 in a row is pretty good.
3 in a row is pretty sweet. And don't look now, but in college basketball, Michigan's number 2, Purdue's number 4, undefeated Nebraska ball is number 7, Michigan State's number 10, and Illinois is number 11. No SEC teams are in that grouping, 1 to 11. And so it's not just, it might be more than just football, which is cool.
The Big Ten's always been pretty good in basketball, but the ACC was the standard. It's not the SEC in basketball.
But the SEC has had a good run of late. The last few years, they've been really
teams,
strong. Yeah. But look, Indiana's been a fun story for those that had no dog in the fight because they're new and they're different and they're the little engine that could, and they're a team that was a laughing stock, a poverty program for so long, and they got the hire right. They
got the hire right.
And Cignetti tapped into. I feel like Cignetti went and did what the Red Wings did. Like he got a bunch of Russians, and they weren't Russians. They were a group of 5 players that had developed and were older and could compete with the Power 5. And
that you didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for because they were a group of 5 guys. So when they came to the Big Ten, they're like, well, yeah, I'll go to the Big Ten.
Yep. And Kamara and Fisher and Pons and Surratt, and they grabbed a receiver from Old Dominion. They grabbed the quarterback from Ohio U last year. Mendoza.
Mendoza was from Cal.
From Cal, but Cal is not exactly a powerhouse program. And now they're going to be able to capitalize on it because people are going to answer Cignetti's call, and they got it up and running, and it's cool. And it will be cool for a while until we get sick of them. But at the end of the day, it is a power shift in the collegiate game that has benefited our region.
I love this story because I think it's the turnaround having it happen as fast as it did is absolutely incredible. And if the SEC spin is going to be, well, yeah, they're just spending money. Okay. They didn't, I don't know if those guys on the offensive line were wildly recruited elsewhere. They took chances on guys, right? The coach took his own guys from James Madison and took guys that he played against and guys that he knew. And those guys were available to anybody else. And I don't think they overpaid for anyone. I don't think people are looking at the portal and going, oh my God, look what Indiana just got in the portal. Now, maybe Mendoza raised an eyebrow because he was actually had a really nice year at Cal prior to getting there. But the rest of the guys, it was a bunch of no names. Like, who the hell are these guys? And then as the season 2 of success goes on, then you realize, okay, some of these guys are really good players. Some of these guys are actually going to play in the NFL. But they weren't the wildly recruited guys that the SEC would typically go after. So I'll push back on the whole thing. Well, they're just going to buy it. Now, it could be a little different moving forward because Indiana's had the success for 2 years, and now they have the perfect season and the national championship, and Mark Cuban is going to start funding things, and There's smart people in Indiana that know how to manipulate this and pay for it, and they will. And they're going to start doing that. And Indiana's had a great portal recruiting class going into the upcoming season. But their high school recruiting class was, it's good, not great. Everything was outside the top 25 by recruiting services, but we'll see what they do. What Cignetti does next is going to be interesting. He's got a quarterback. Even though he just lost the Heisman Trophy winner, they're reloading with another good quarterback. We'll see what they have to do with the receivers and the offensive line. They're losing a lot of players, but it seems like they've got this thing rolling, and they've got the right coach. It starts there. This guy can coach anybody.
The other thing, to Saban's point, unless you think of James Madison as the South, like Roman Hemby was a transfer from Maryland. Riley Nowakowski and Drew Evans came from Wisconsin. Like, it wasn't like he went down south and raided the South. He got Pat Coogan from Notre Dame.
Where was Surratt from?
Surratt was a James Madison kid. So if James Madison's the South, I guess it could apply to what Saban was saying, but
it's James Madison. It's not Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Mississippi, Florida.
Yeah, I don't think what he had to say applies to Indiana at all. They got the receiver who's down the depth chart. I have to look his name. He's a Clemson kid. One of their DBs is an NC State kid. The receiver's E.J. Williams.
Well, it doesn't apply to Indiana.
No,
does it
doesn't
apply. Does it apply to other teams in the Big Ten? Yeah,
yes,
it does.
But
lots of players from Florida and Georgia, and those are just the states, let alone the programs, are moving on to teams in the North. Are they moving on because they're paying? Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
It was a fun game to watch. And Gator, do you know that is the first Adidas national champion since? Can you name the last Adidas national champion?
If I cared, I might be able to.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Tennessee in 1998. And this was two Adidas schools playing against one another, which had the folks at Adidas very happy.
Good for them.
Yeah. My favorite player in the field for Indiana is D'Angelo Pons, the undersized defensive back.
He's very good.
Who is not only makes plays on the football, he hits hard. He has no regard for his personal well-being.
No, and he's smart the way he plays the game, and he is so quick. The play he made to start the game, the pass knockaway, was the pass defend that he had was incredible. Yep. He's got an arm on the back of the receiver, but it's not pulling him away. There's no interference there. He just reaches across, boom. He karate chops the ball away. You don't have a chance. 5'9", I get it, but it's a guy who's 5'9" with all the heart in the world, and there are guys like that in the NFL. This guy's going to be a player next level.
Much has been made, and we've talked about it for weeks, and the rest of the world is kind of caught up to it, is the age of the Indiana roster. This is a formula. This is absolutely a formula. And Dion was the first coach that said, to hell with high school recruiting, I'm going after transfers. Now, you got to get the right guys, but the older the roster, that was, you look at the Michigan team that won the 2023 national championship. They had an older roster. This is an older roster. I've seen this in college hockey for years. Mm-hmm. I think it's applicable because in colleges, a lot of guys go to juniors and then start as 20-year-old freshmen at Quinnipiac, who goes out and wins a national championship because they got 23 and 24-year-olds playing against Michigan and Michigan State with their 5-star 18-year-olds that are going to get drafted that year. But it's men against boys. I think.
And now they've changed the rules.
Yes.
So it makes it even better for college.
But at the end of the day, I think that might be the one thing that is totally repeatable by others is, I don't want to say to hell with high school recruiting, but if you can get a fourth-year guy.
Well, it's keeping guys in your program would be great. Or getting players that have experience, and because they're paying at the college level, like you're getting paid as a professional, why not stay the extra year? You can understand that Dante Moore going back to Oregon. Dante Moore would have likely have been the second quarterback taken in the NFL draft this year. Mm-hmm. First round pick for sure. And he's like, you know what? No, I'll get paid $6 million to stay at Oregon. I'll do that. I'll go one more year to Oregon, enjoy the college life, and then I'll go pro afterwards. Because that's where the money's at right now. Now, that's for the top guys, but if you're, somebody, an offensive lineman that's not going to be a first round pick, but you're a hot name in the portal and you might get $800,000 to $1 million or whatever the price is, and you're not going to get that being a 4th round draft pick, do it.
Doug, I can't believe, did you mention I'm sorry, I was busy back here. Did you mention Jamari Sharp wasn't your favorite player last night?
No. D'Angelo Ponzes.
Yeah, why not Jamari Sharp?
The one that picked it off at the end?
Yeah, how poetic was it that he's the one who picked off the ball to end the game? Did you hear that story at the end of that?
No.
Okay, you brought this up last week or 2 weeks ago. The Miami game versus Ohio State. What happened in the end zone?
The pass interference call?
You know who that was?
Oh, was it the kid's dad?
His uncle.
Oh, my God.
Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Now, how many years later?
So
his
the
nephew,
flag was thrown on a Miami player in the 2002 national championship game, a controversial call in the end zone that kept an Ohio State drive alive. They ended up winning the game. It was his nephew that picked that off?
Yep. And Sharp was his uncle that called for the pass interference call.
That's crazy.
That's unbelievable,
So
isn't
the
it?
Sharp family has had direct impact on 2 national championship losses for Miami right at the end. Wow. We'll get to your phone calls and feedback coming up. It is Carson Anderson on 97.1. Sam Bernstein Law. Call Sam. Get respect, get results, get experience. That's the Bernstein advantage. You don't pay for anything unless you win, period. Call Sam at 1-800-CALL-SAM. Indiana's a national champion in football. And I got to tell you, it was a damn entertaining playoff this year. Damn entertaining.
I thought so.
Yeah. Enjoyed the hell out of it. And the last thing I want to see is expansion, and I can't believe Tony Petitti's pushing for 24 teams. Everybody else wants to move to 16, and I just assume leave it at 12. But my guess is, call me crazy, I think they're going to go after the money grab, and short-term money grabs are the thing. 248-539-9797. Let's get back to your open line calls. We got a Ryan. You're on 97.1. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
All right. So, as much as it pains me, I have to agree with you. I really believe that the SEC was paying players for years and years, decades, if you will. I'm from the South. I grew up in Tennessee, so I'm a big UT Slappy. But the NIL deal has really leveled the playing field, if you ask me. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look at who won the last 3 national championships. I think it's fair, if you ask me, personally. I don't know. I mean, I think I know how you feel about it, but
yeah, I mean, look, it's the type of thing that, you know, there's a lot of implications over what was going on over the years. It's kind of wink and a nod. At the end of the day, I mean, who would ever argue against a level playing field? Now, part of the problem is it really level? Because some schools have more money than others, and that doesn't feel really level. But the moment you put a cap in place, I would say that there are probably schools that didn't hesitate to pay players before that will just blast over the cap.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, I don't either, man. That's up for debate and for somebody else. You know, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, like I said, I grew up down south and I love the SEC. But things are they're coming full circle right now. Honestly, and more power to the Big Ten. You know, I never was a Big Ten hater or anything like that, but I just think that it's becoming more level. But like you said, there's other schools that have way more money, way more financial backing, if you will, and it still may not be completely level, but at least it's coming around, if you will.
Thank you for the phone call, Ryan. 248-539-9797. SEC guy, spot on. Dave in Clinton Township. What's up, Dave?
Hey there. I actually called to talk about the coach, but you mentioned that defensive back from Indiana.
Yeah.
2 words, Darrell Green. Did he remind you of him by any chance?
D'Angelo Pons?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit.
He's not as fast as Darrell Green, but nobody was as fast as Darrell Green.
Nobody was.
Smaller defensive back. Last week I mentioned Bob Sanders, but Darrell Green, yeah.
Anyway, so the coach from Indiana, you talked about him being the right hire, and I don't know enough about the college coaching game to answer this. So is he really like an innovative guy? Is there anything that he's doing that's changing the game, or is he a better GM? In other words, he just got the right guys. Is he an X's and O's genius or what? What's his deal with him being the right hire?
He just wins.
I think there's 2 things about him. One is I think he brings I think he gets a relentless effort out of his players from the beginning to the end. And his sideline demeanor, and he talks about it. I can't ask them to go as hard as I ask them to go without being a hard ass on the sidelines. That's one. And I think he gets the most out of his roster. But 2 is I think he took advantage of an untapped resource, which was not FCS schools, but group of 5 schools, took many of the most talented players out of the group of 5 and brought them as 22 and 23-year-olds to the Power 5 level. And it's working. And it is men against boys. And others will try and mimic this. But now Cignetti will have access to a lot more players than he used to. I think there's a chance that he'll be able to sustain this. I was skeptical at first, but
is he an X's and O's?
There's nothing about him that's wildly innovative where people are going, oh my God, we got to copy that.
Yeah, or would his game translate to the old school way of doing things? Would he have been?
I think he's very.
I think he's an old school.
He's an old school.
1980.
He's an old school coach. Yeah.
That's what I was just curious about this guy.
Yep.
I just didn't know enough about it.
Yeah, his last stop before he got a head coaching gig, his last stop before that was at Alabama. And he coached wide receivers and was the, I think, run game coordinator as well. And then once he became a head coach, he took a job at IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Wasn't it? And his dad was the long-term coach there.
And he was there for 6 years and went 53-17. Did a nice job there. Parlayed that to a job at Elon and went 14-9 in 2 years.
Great campus.
And then to James Madison for 5 years, where he went 52-9. So he was awfully impressive as a head coach, but not a championship head coach. You got to keep that.
He never won the championship at James Madison.
Maybe no, because they were maybe a conference championship, but not national championships. So and then gets the gig in Indiana, goes 11-2 and 16-0. It's amazing. It's one of the great stories in all of sports.
I wonder when Cignetti was sitting back when the rule got passed that NIL was going to be allowed and players were going to be allowed to get paid. Did he realize, or did he immediately think, I'm going to take advantage of this? Or did he bristle at the thought? I wonder what he thought with that, because I don't know if anybody has benefited more personally than Curt Cignetti.
I don't know if it's NIL. I mean, you'd have to get an itemized list of how much they paid the players, but it doesn't strike me that they paid too much for these guys. It's not like they got the transfers from Georgia and Alabama.
The big one they got was the Notre Dame kid, the center. But you might be right, and the quarterbacks. But Derek is next in Detroit. Hi, Derek.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I got a couple of points to make real quickly. First of all, Gator, I want to thank him for openly, honestly taking a look at what happened with the defense and, calling out chapter and verse what happened with the injuries, prior to the injuries and afterwards, okay? Second thing, you guys mentioned a second ago about the playing field being leveled.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you say it was about if they come with the, like the NFL does, cap?
Well, yeah.
I think the playing field will still be level to a degree because just like he did in Indiana, if they level the playing field, even if somebody can't afford